Good morning, Bible Center. This is Richard, and I have today's devotion, and I've titled it, Don't Worry, Trust Jesus. Now, there's a song written that says, here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. In every life we have some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry, be happy. You probably recognize those lyrics from the song released in 1988 titled, Don't Worry, Be Happy. And if you're like me, you get that song stuck in your head and it just goes on, and I apologize if that's happened. But according to this song, why shouldn't we worry? Because it just makes things worse. Can I ask you a question? What do you worry about? What keeps you up at night? What do you fret about? What fear are you facing today, right now? It's been said that most of what we worry about doesn't even come true. Now, a good definition to worry is this. Worry is giving way to anxiety or unease, or allowing one's mind to dwell on difficulty or troubles. Our passage today is found in Matthew chapter 6. Jesus is teaching his followers some important truths about life. In chapter 5, Jesus was teaching his disciples and others the Beatitudes. He was teaching on murder and adultery, divorce, oaths, loving enemies, giving to the needy, prayer, fasting, and laying up treasures in heaven. And after all these, Jesus finishes chapter 6 teaching on this subject, worry. Jesus then continues in chapter 7 on other important subjects in life. And it could be possible that after Jesus taught on the subjects I've just mentioned, he knew that we would need a lesson on worry. I also find it interesting that worry comes right after laying up treasure in heaven and what Jesus says about money. Let that sink in for a minute. Well, our passage and our verse today is Matthew 6:34. In today's reading, Jesus tells us not to worry about our lives, what we will wear, what we'll eat or drink. And even in verse 27, he reminds us that we can't even add 1 hour to our lives by worrying. Jesus then says, don't worry because God knows our needs. Jesus gives examples of how God supplies the needs of the earth and then reminds us that we are more valuable than it. Then in verse 33, Jesus tells us that if they, or we, seek his kingdom and his righteousness first, then all our needs will be met. Then in verse 34, Jesus gives us this command. He says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough troubles of its own. I started with a song that was written in 1988. And another song that comes to my mind is a song that was written in the Disney animated movie Lion King. It's called Hakuna Matata, and it means no worries. But here's what I think should be our song as Christians when it comes to worrying. How about great is thy faithfulness? I'd like to read a story to you about how that hymn had come into play. Thomas Chisolm was born in a simple log cabin in Franklin, Kentucky in 1866. Lacking a high school education or any college training, he became a school teacher by the age of 16 and later entered the newspaper business. The following years found him ordained a pastor, but poor health forced him to leave the ministry. After a time of recuperation, he moved to New Jersey to work as an insurance agent. Now, Mr. Chisolm was a prolific writer of poetry, and so he sent a collection of his poems in 1923 to his good friend William Runyon. Mr. Runyon was a musician associated with Chicago's Moody Bible Institute, who also worked for a hymnal publishing company. While he was on a trip to Baldwin, Kansas, Mr. Runyon leafed through the poems sent by Mr. Chisolm, and he was immediately taken in by the depth of meaning and the lyrical beauty of the words found in the poem, "Great is Thy Faithfulness." Years later, Runyon recalled, "This particular poem held such an appeal that I prayed most earnestly that my tune might carry over its message in a worthy manner." Out of a simple prayer, Runyon's melody took shape, and the completed hymn was published by Ryan that same year. Due to Runyon's association with Moody Bible Institute, "Great is Thy Faithfulness" became a favorite with the students and faculty alike, and has become the Institute's unofficial college hymn. Yet it was slow to catch on in churches across the United States until Billy Graham began to include the hymn in his crusades. You know, the next time you start to worry or start to become anxious, try singing the chorus of this great hymn as a prayer to God and a reminder to yourself. Great is Thy faithfulness. Great is Thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, Thy hand hath provided. Great is Thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. In Philippians 4:6, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Here's the thought for today. Let's not be in a hurry when it comes to worry. Praying is a must, for in Jesus we trust. Stop worrying and trust Jesus. Have a blessed day.